Got a call. All right. That was weird. Never got a call during the live show before. Not on this phone anyway. All right, all right. Thursday evening again. And time to go live. How's everyone doing this evening? See, I'm already off key. I've been thrashing since I got home. I had dyno work to do, had some problems out there, and just got in here in time to set up my phone and a few things. So I'm kind of scatterbrained, as I say right now. But we'll let a few more people get on here. Basically tonight, I just wanted to go over a few things that I get a pretty good amount of calls on. Make sure everybody can hear me okay. If you can't, just comment, and I'll see what I can do. But get a lot of calls and concerns and stuff about putting the ratio rockers on the Hemi head. It's not as easy, as putting them on other style heads. It's not a plug and play kind of like, the non-Hemi heads or the clone heads are. It's not that big a deal, but there are some things on it that you need to look for, you need to do, and some different parts you have to use when you're putting the ratio rockers on the Hemi. We got a few people on here. I'm gonna do my best to keep this under 45 minutes, at least an hour tonight. I've really been trying hard to do that, but we're gonna try our best to do it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started, and we'll look at some questions here in a little bit. All right, here on this is just a bare block. There's nothing in it, no crank, no cam. I didn't bring all that stuff, but you see we got the stock rockers installed here. For those of you who's never seen a Hemi head, these are the rockers that's on it. They're a shaft mounted style rocker. They don't have the screw in studs like the non-Hemi and the Hondas and the clones do. These are actually shaft mounted. They're a very good rocker. I've seen very few fail. I've never broke one. I've seen other people that have back when they first come out, because a lot of people didn't understand the shorter installed height on them. Like in the video I done a couple of weeks ago about the types of springs you need to use in these Hemi heads because of shorter installed height. I'm gonna go over a little bit of that tonight too, just to kind of refresh. But a lot of people didn't pick up on that, and they broke some stuff. But now they've been out a few years, and people's gotten accustomed to kind of stuff like that, and things aren't breaking anymore. These things are very, very solid. But like I say, the other style engines have an adjuster and then a lock nut on top of it. You just loosen that and they screw off. These, I'm gonna take the head off of for right this second. And but these, like I say, are shaft mounted, and they've got these little pins and these clips. Each side of the pin has a clip on it. And what I do, I just use a small flat screwdriver, and you got to remember that the pin needs to come out to the inside. So you take the outside clip off, and do not lose these, because these things are hard to find. But again, I'm working with a new style camera and everything's backwards for me. But you just take the little flat screwdriver. I know a lot of this is going to be stuff y'all already know, but I just want to go over for the ones that don't. Just take a little flat screwdriver, get it positioned around, and just pop it right off. That simple. Here's a little clip. Got grease on it. Alright, put it in a place where you're not going to lose it. And then the pin just slides out. You only take one side off. They got clips on both sides, but you only take one out. There's the pin. Here's our rocker. Alright, like I say, these are some very good rockers. Once we figured out what to do, they don't break a whole lot. Everything has the limitations, but these are good. But one thing is, they're very heavy. Like if you're using these Hemi style engines in a stock class, like the box stock, I mean the true box stock with the air filters, you know, the stock air boxes on and stuff like that. These are a pretty heavy rocker, and you're not going to get the RPMs most of the time out of these with 10.8s as you will the RTC style heads, which have lighter valve trains in them. But for modifieds, these are great. But they are a 1-to-1-ish ratio, just like anything else made in China. They'll be anywhere from 1-to-1 to 1 to 1.1, but they're classified as a 1-to-1 rocker. Installing the ratio rockers, first thing I recommend anytime you're going to put ratio rockers or a bigger cam or anything in these, go to a stainless valve. I got a stock one on the exhaust, and the intake is a stainless with the retainers. Even if you're going to run the stock rocker, I recommend going to the stainless style valve. They're just, you get better life out of it. These valves in here are pretty decent valves, but they use the little clips, you know, just like the Hondas and the clones do. I've seen them fail from time to time. If you're using something like a Mod 2 22-pound springs, you're probably okay with these stock ones. But you go to, you know, a 26-pound spring, or you get up to like the F275 cam, highly recommend stainless valves. But there again, like in my video a couple weeks ago, you got short installed heights in here. A 26-pound spring is the heaviest spring you're going to be able to use without cutting the seat pockets where the valves go. The valve springs, I meant to say. You have to cut the pockets out a little wider and a little deeper. Remember, you know, like our video, because the bigger springs are bigger around, they won't fit down in the little pocket. But anyway, stainless steel valves, billet retainers. Now, the ratio rockers, this is the ones we sell. These are from NR. We get them from them. They make them. Very good rocker. They're steel billet, roller tip. Then the adjuster, as you notice, is on the back. The roller tip is here. The adjuster is back here. The stock one is just the opposite. The adjuster is on the valve. Now, with heavier springs, I made a post a couple of weeks ago about a Hemi engine that had some 26-pound springs in it with lash caps, and the adjuster here, it rides on the valve or on the lash cap, whichever you run, but it had worn a hole in the lash cap because the 26-pound springs are so stiff. It's hard to set lash that way. That's one of the drawbacks of these, is the adjuster, even though it's rounded off, sits on the valve and rotates on the valve. So it wears either the valve out or it wears the lash cap out. That's why you need to run lash caps, because it's going to wear them out. And you can change your lash caps easily. Put them back on, reset your lash. You have to do it every 2 races. That's fine. Another drawback, the weight of it, they're heavy, and it wears the lash caps out because of the adjuster being here on the valve. And that's just with, you know, heavy duty springs, you know, 26s, you know, or more. But the ratio rocker is a roller tip. We sell them in 1-to-2 ratio. We can also get them in 1-to-3. I really like the 1-to-2s with the type of cams and stuff that I use. But they go on exactly the same way that the other ones come off. You just put the roller on the valve side, take the exact same pin. Y'all know I'm having to do everything backwards, and I'm left-handed, and I cannot swat a fly right-handed. Alright, pin goes back in, and your clip goes to the outside. Now, to put these clips on, several different ways you could do it. I've got this is actually a broken screwdriver that I used as a pry bar one day, and it broke, but it left a nice little flat tip on there, and it works really good for putting these clips back on. Like I say, don't lose these because they're kind of hard to find, especially OEM ones. What I do is I line it up on the, you know, straight up and down. Take this flat part, pops right on there. That simple. Always double check it. And your rocker's on. That's it. Now, like I say, stainless valves and a lash cap. The reason I like running the lash caps with the roller rocker is it gives a little broader area for it to roll around on. We have had problems with these people sometimes not running lash caps, and the valves would float. They'd have too weak of valve springs in it for the type of cam they're using, and the spring would float. And what it does, it would push the valve down, and the valve would leave the rocker, and the rocker would keep going down. When it come back up, it'd meet and it'd break the tip of it off. We've had that several times. We've also had some break because of I told you, Bradley, you wanted to tune in tonight. In case y'all haven't noticed, I'm wearing my favorite racers shirt. You rarely see me wear t-shirts. Rarely. But I got this from Bradley, and I texted him earlier and said, you need to tune in. It's going to be beneficial to you. So I'm advertising for you, Bradley. I didn't lie to you. I'm rough on Bradley sometimes with the way I pick on him with memes and stuff like that, and I figured I'd pay him back tonight and wear one of his shirts. So anyway, you're welcome, Bradley. You made me forget what I was saying, though. Oh, yeah. We've also had, because of the valve installed height space, that the rockers would actually break the tip off because the springs would coil bind. They would collapse. And something has to give. And a lot of times it bends the push rods, but after a while it'll actually break the tip of the roller off. So that's why it's very important when you put these ratio rockers in it that you check coil bind. Typically I don't run more than a 308 cam with these ratio rockers. These are 1-2s, but I always cut my spring height. I make it wider, I make it lower. I add about 60 thousandths, I think, deeper on the installed height. Now I have used these a lot with the 26-pound springs. And with that, I usually don't go over like a 275 cam. I'll use like the CM 275, and don't really recommend using the F275 with these rockers unless you cut the spring pockets and put 36s in it. Because that F275 has got a fast ramp that's going to float these 26s with a 1-2 rocker. I use the CM cam with these, the Super Box cam I think it's called, with a 26-pound spring, and it works very well. I turn them 82, 84, never had a problem with it. But always check your coil bind. Any cam you put in here that's bigger than stock, always check your coil bind. I don't care what rockers you're using, always check your coil bind. It's easy to do. Anybody can do it. You don't take special tools. All it takes is decent eyesight and a feeler gauge. That's it. Go all the way down. Make sure you got at least 60 thousandths in between the coils, and you'll be good at full lift. All right. Again, kind of running through this fast, but trying to get to everything. All right. Something else you'll need whenever you go to the ratio rockers for the Hemi. Now we sell. These are also from NR. We sell chromoly push rods for the Hemi that's standard length. And if you notice, they are a 5.540, which is around standard length for the Hemi engine with stock rockers. Now if you notice, these rockers, it's going to be kind of hard to see it, but they actually sit lower in the head than the stock ones do. Quite a bit lower, actually. And also, because the adjuster is on the back side, you have to run a standard length chromoly push rod, which is the same length as the clone, the Honda, or the Gen 3 Predator. They're all within a few thousandths of each other, but you have to use the standard length, which is a 5260. It's a part number DJ 1070CM. When you buy these rockers off our website, this is a related item. Anytime on our website, when you buy a product, if you look at the related items, they're in there for a reason. Either it must go with it, or it works well with it, or we recommend ththese parts with it. But in this case, when you order these rocker arms, this is a related item, and it says in the description that you must use a standard length chromoly push rod. which is the DJ 1070CM, because the Hemi ones are a lot longer, as you can see. That is the clone one. This is the Hemi one. A lot longer. That way you'll have plenty of adjustment back here on your adjuster. Now, I'll also tell you, it's a lot easier to put the push rods in before you put the rocker arms on, because the adjuster back here on the back, it's at an awkward angle. I mean, I have worked them in without doing it, but usually what I do is I take the adjuster off of it. Comes right out, just a Allen head. I'm using a 5/32 Allen head. Not saying that's the right size, but it fits it. It might be metric. I don't know. I don't get into all that stuff. If it fits, I use it. And the bolt, the nut on it is 3/8. Take that out first, then put your push rods in. Well, you'll want the rocker off before you put the push rods in. Got the wrong screwdriver, but it'll be alright. Take your adjuster off, drop your push rod into your head. It'll sit down in there. Then put your rocker on, put your pin in, and lock it in. Then all you'll have to do is reach down there with a pair of needle nose or a screwdriver or something, or your fingers, and set your push rod up into the area it goes. You can kind of work it in there as you put it on, and then stick the adjuster back on, put your lash cap on, and adjust your valves. But with this being on the back here, you get you get better adjustment back here, because on the front up here, if the bolt wears a lot quicker. They're not going to stay adjusted like they need to, because like I say, the adjuster bolt is actually rubbing on the valve or the lash cap. It wears, the lash cap wears, the clearances open up. That's what makes these so much better, because the adjuster is on the back, the roller tip touches the valve, and there's no real wear. Your lash stays the same, pretty much throughout the race. I've seen these change as much as 10 thousandths after one race. But another drawback to having the adjuster on the back side, there's pros and cons to everything. These rockers have a lot of pros. One of the cons is the adjuster is on the back, which makes it tough to put your valve cover on. You got two options with it, because what's going to happen with the adjuster being on the back, when the valve rocks forward, it's going to hit the cap or the cover. It's going to hit it pretty solid. You can't run 2 gaskets, 3 gaskets. It's going to take more than that. Two options on it. I believe NR makes a spacer that goes underneath the cover and moves it up. Those are nice. If you're not wanting to buy something, you can do what I do. I get a paint pen. I get everything set. I get both rockers in it. I get both push rods in it. I set the lash to 0, and I just kind of snug them down. And what I do is I take a paint pen and I color the top of the adjuster. I take a couple of bolts, stick in the back here so it lines it up. I rotate, I color both of them at the same time, and I rotate the engine around, and it'll hit the cap. Having the bolts in there, not tight, but just have them stuck in there so it keeps everything straight. When it hits it, it's going to leave a mark. Man, I'm butterfingered tonight. It'll leave a mark, somewhere in this area on the valve cover. I take a die grinder and cut out, cut down and cut out the same shape as this. Once you get it cut out, it takes 10 minutes. One gasket, you're good to go. I've done hundreds of them that way. Never had a single problem. I'm just not one for buying stuff I don't need. If I can fix it myself, I'm going to fix it. That gives you two options. You can buy the extension, get a paint pen, watch where it hits, cut it out. Simple, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Alright, I got a bunch of questions here backed up. Holy crap. Hello, 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 hello. Yeah, it's always a long day. Yeah, Cody Hill, nice shirt. You got one too, don't you? Yeah, most of these just people saying what's up and hey, and I know I'm stuttering and umming and ooming a whole bunch tonight, but like I say, I was rushed to get in here. Chip, what's happening? Yeah, it's an excellent shirt. And I will wear y'all's shirts too. Y'all send me a shirt, I'll wear it live during my video and give y'all some little bit of free advertisement. I wear a medium and whatever. Send me a shirt and I will wear it. You had a chrome ollie colored bicycle. I'm gonna leave that one alone. Chrome ollie is a type of metal, not really a color. Yeah, you had a chrome bicycle. Uh-oh, and our first guest.
Hey, Daddy.
Hey, buddy. What are you doing? Huh? We took his crib down and it's sitting up here blocking my view and I can't see him. You got a red popsicle? Hi, how you doing? You got a red popsicle? I see your teeth and your mouth and half of your face is red. Good job.
Bye, Daddy. Bye, Daddy.
Bye, buddy. Every time. Every time. All right. Advantages of running a ratio rocker. Good question. What the ratio rockers do, number one, it adds more lift to the cam, to the total lift at the valve. If you got a 275 cam and you put 1 to 2s on it, you're going to be somewhere in the area of, off the top of my head, 330, 340 lift. It adds 20% more lift, and a 1 to 3 adds around 30% more lift. But the biggest thing it does, in my opinion, is it speeds up the ramp of the cam, which is what makes power. Like I said, I love using that little CM cam, the Superbox cam. I use it in a lot of engines, and I use 1 to 2, 1 to 3 rockers on it, and that's a lower duration cam that I'm adding more lift to, plus speeding up the ramp, and it gives you a really good power range once you learn how to use it. When you first time I used them, I thought they were junk, and I wouldn't use one for a long time until I actually got to sit down, one day up with the dyno and just said, I'm gonna figure this thing out, because other people were using it. And once I figured out what to do as far as jetting and timing, I saw a lot put in stuff now as far as, mild stock appearings or mild outlaws. Now, if we're going something with a, big Tilson or big Mikuni, we're going, with a 310 or 315 with 1 to 2s on it, possibly 1 to 3s. But, like stock appearing carburetors and 390 carburetors, in my opinion, the little CM cam works good. But it speeds up the ramp of the cam, which helps a lot on the initial intake charge, because I'm wanting to say that over half of your intake charge is done in the first 50% of valve lift. And that quick valve opening and all, it just helps with the charge. It helps port velocity, and but it also adds lift. Like I said, you take a smaller duration cam, which is going to have a little more bottom end, add more lift to it, and in theory, it's supposed to lengthen the torque curve on it. It's going to take some work to learn what to do, but once you figure it out, ratio rockers, if I want to run higher lift, I'm going to put a moderate cam in and put ratio rockers on it, because I've found that it helps with not necessarily making more peak, but it helps broaden torque curves, which is what you really want. Who cares if you got an engine that makes 20 horsepower at 7,800 if it's only making 12 at 6,500. You want something that's going to start making power at a low band and make good power all the way up the top end. And that's what I've learned with ratio rockers really helps people do that. But it is a little rough on the valve train, you know, because what you're doing, you know, the way they get the ratio, you know, from pivot point to tip, usually are, you know, the same length. Where the ratio comes from is they move the heck is that? They move the push rod closer to the pivot point, and that makes things, you know, that gives it more lift, makes things quicker, but it puts more pressure on the entire valve train. The cam, you know, the valves, the springs, everything takes a little bit more beating. That's why it's the F275 cam. You know, I used to run that cam a lot with ratios, but I've kind of backed away from it because it's so hard on the block itself. F275 has got such a squared lobe on it, and such a fast ramp out the box that it's rough on the lifters, and it causes a little wear down there. And you put ratio rockers on it, it puts more pressure on it. That's a great cam. I love the F275, but you have to be careful using it, and don't put too much spring pressure on it so it slows you down. But you got to have enough to slow the you know, to keep the valve, the lifter running on the cam so it don't float. Okay, hello. Well, Jeff, obviously you just tuned in because earlier I said if you send me a shirt, I'll wear it. You know, to a certain extent. I'm not going to promote other people's products on here. If it's a shirt with our name on it, I'll wear it, or if it's a racer shirt, I'll wear it. But I don't want to wear somebody else's products. I probably need to put a disclosure on that. I'll wear your team shirts. Send them in. I'll do some team, individual racer promotions. How about that? Or maybe track promotions. But send me in the shirt. If I think it's appropriate, I'll wear it. Oh no! What did I do? If you have a head that is milled and use those ratio rockers, still use the push rods for the clone. Yeah. Depending on how much it's milled, you know, we do have chromoly rocker arms that's a little bit shorter than the standard clone length, so we got you covered there. And if you still need something outside of that, we have the cut the length push rods. So yeah, even if it's milled, I would still start with a standard length clone push rod and kind of look at your angles and go from there. You know, I get people asking me all the time, you know, what do you mean by rocker angles? I don't understand that. All right, let's see. I'm going to try to get this as level as I can. If you notice, this is the adjuster side, and this is the tip side. You notice there's a slight I just made a new word, a slight downward angle on the back side of the rocker. There's no real specific, it's got to be 30 degrees, it's got to be 32.455 degrees. Just you need a slightly downward angle on the push rod side. You want it a little lower than the front. I mean, you don't want it looking like that. You know, you definitely don't want the tip lower than the push rod side. It's all about keeping the roller where it needs to be when it's on the valve. And 99.999% of the time, if you have a slightly downward angle on the push rod side, your roller, if they're all made right, is going to be in the vicinity of the center of the valve, or maybe just a little past it, which is fine, because as it pushes down, it's got a 26-pound spring on it. I can't push it. As it pushes down, it rolls back on the valve. You don't want it too close to the inside of the valve, because when it pushes down, it could push off the valve. You want it center or just past center with a slightly downward angle on the back side. That's a good angle right there. Let me get this one down. So, yeah. Just a little bit down. But that's one thing to look for if you mill the head. The more you mill the head, because when you cut the head, you're moving the head down closer to the crankshaft, but the push rods stay in the same length. So there is a certain extent where you're going to need shorter than stock link clone push rods, and we got those. They're a GXC number. I forget the whole number, but we got them. We also got the cut the length one. Mod 2 versus a CM 275 with ratio rockers. Ooh, that's a tough one. Depends on the rest of the build, because the Mod 2 is a higher duration cam. And you throw some 1 to 3s on it, you're looking at right around, what, 300 lifts? Because I think it's 2, and here we go again. Yes, sir. How can I assist you? Hey, buddy, how are you? Hey, you want a paint pen? You want a paint pen? Get an evil look from Mama right now. Alright, not sure where Mama's at. We're just gonna carry on, my wayward son.
Mama's here.
Oh, Mama is there. Anyway, yeah, push rod. Oh, Mod 2 CM 275. Mod 2's stock lift, higher duration. The 275 is lower duration with a little more lift. If you're running a 390 style carburetor or a stock appearing, either one. I mean, to be honest with you, I will tell you that the 275 is probably going to have a little more bottom end on it because it's a lower duration cam. The Mod 2 with the ratio rockers, if they got the same rockers on them, both of them's got 1 to 3. The Mod 2 will catch up with it, you know, in the 7,000 range, and the 275 may pull past it 8,000 plus. With the engines I've used the Mod 2s in with the 1 to 3s on it, they are about tit for tat, you know, for as far as the CM cam. I just like the CM, you know, because of the lower duration. It tends to have a little more bottom end, and when I put the ratios on it, adds more lift and ramp speed, which helps the mid-range and top end. So that's depends on, like I say, the build and what you're looking for. If you're looking for, you know, an 8,000 RPM motor, 82, 84, you know, and it's going to be something where you're on the throttle a lot, you're not backing off a lot, the Mod 2 is probably going to be your choice. Now, if you're backing off and you got to have good pull out the corner and all, I would probably go with the CM cam. But I don't know, I may do that back to back, because I've had that question asked me several times, and I've never done it back to back. I've got a build I'm going to do probably next week. It's going to be a good stock appearing engine, and I'll actually do that. I'll do them both with 1 to 3 rockers. And, you know, I'm not the kind, when I do testing, if I'm going to test a flywheel, if I'm going to test a header or a carburetor or a cam, I don't just install it, make a pull, and go, oh, it's good or not. I work with it. I work with jetting. If I'm going to do a cam, I'm going to set my CM cam up the way I always do. I'm going to tune it, time it, because I always go to dyno with an adjustable flywheel and on most engines, not all of them. I'm going to change the timing, I'm going to change the jetting, I'm going to get it the best it can get, let the engine cool down, put the Mod 2 in it, do the same thing. I'm going to tune it until I get the best I can out of it, and I may post some results on the ARC page of that, or my page or something. But your dad used to replace an intake valve and an exhaust valve on a stock motor. I got some family members that's on here watching me tonight. Yeah, that's some old stuff that we still do, believe it or not. And like the stock appearings where you got to run stock size valves, actually the rules say you got to run stock seats, and that's where people like me see this big old gray area. It says, oh, stock seats. Don't say nothing about what size valves. So we cut the valves down to as small as we can get them, or, you know, put 2 exhaust valves in it, because you know, the seat itself is where the flow comes from. All a valve does is seal it off. So if you can put a smaller valve in a seat, you know, if you got a 25 millimeter seat and you put a 24 millimeter valve in it, if you work it right, if you work your seat angles and all right, you will pick up flow, because when the valve opens, the air is actually having to go around the valve to get into the cylinder. And that smaller head, that's less it's got to go around, and that's less it slows it down. So yeah, that technique is still used a lot today. Not as much as it was a few years ago, but it's still used a lot. Which a lot of people get confused about, putting big valves and all in the engines, and I've had people buy 27 millimeter valves, and that the engines come with 25 on the intake, and they'll just put the 27 valve on top of the 25 seat. A lot of people will laugh at that. I won't, because I was in that position at one time. I grew up a little more fortunate than most with the family I was in. When I was his age, I was hanging out down at Smoky Unit Shop in Daytona a lot, but everybody had to learn this, and they don't know. All they hear is, you put bigger valves in, bigger valves. Well, you actually put bigger seats in first, and then you put a bigger valve on that, or you take the seats that's in it and enlarge it to that valve. But I've had lots of people call me and say, man, I put this bigger valve in my engine and it slowed down. Well, that's because you put a bigger valve on the stock seat, and that's more that air has to flow around to go down, and it slows the air down. But anyway, a little off topic there. Appreciate that, Reno. All right, while we're on the subject of Hemis, is there any more questions about the rock arms? I know I run through it fast like I always do, so I can babble, which is what I'm good at. Any more questions, just shoot them up here, or like I say, this will be, posted up, y'all can watch later. But another big subject on the Hemi, and I'm glad somebody mentioned the Mod 2 because it reminded me of doing this, is the crankshaft. The Hemi crankshaft, they're cut different than other crankshafts that we use, like the clone crankshaft, the Honda crankshafts, or the non-Hemi Predator crankshafts. They're cut in a different factory, and if you notice, this is a non-Hemi crankshaft out of a Gen 3 engine. If you notice, the top of it is cut flat up here, and this is from the factory. It's still got the dark marks where it was heat treated and all. This is how most of them come. The Hondas, all the Hondas, all the clones, and the Gen 3 non-Hemi Predators, they all come like this, what I call flat top. Now the Hemis, over the past couple of years, it's kind of a 50-50 shot. Some of them come flat like that, but most of them come more rounded up here. They're tall and they're really rounded. And you put one of the Mod 2 cams in it, a higher duration, or even a higher lift cam, you stick it in there and bolt your engine together, you go to rotate it around, and it hits the crankshaft solid. That higher duration, is a square lobe, and it hits it solid. I mean, it locks the engine down. And you got two options there. You need to take the cam out if you're really good and got the proper tools to do it. You take the cam out and you grind the lobes and L-shape them so that it goes around it. Not everybody has the tools or the capability to do it. What I do, and I got the tools to do it, but what I do is I take the crankshaft out before I even assemble the engine. If I know it's a Hemi, I look at the crank. If it's got them big rounded areas on it, I take tape, regular duct tape, black electrical tape, whatever, wrap it around the journal, and I go over to my bench grinder. Bench grinder. You gotta be careful saying that word. Go to my bench grinder, and very carefully just round it off. You need to use a new stone on there. If you got an old stone, it's all where it's gonna bounce around and it's gonna chatter up. But use a nice stone on it and just round them off. Cut them down. You might want to cut them a little closer than this. I just done this one before I left the shop. I just stuck it up there and stuck a belt to it because I was in a hurry. But you might want to cut them down a little bit closer than that. Best thing to do is get a clone or a non-Hemi crank and kind of set over there with it so that you can, see what's going on. But just grind them down. Don't touch the journal, but grind them down. You can do it with a die grinder. I know some people that chalk them up in planing machines and run over the top of it, whatever. But just cut them down, polish them up, and then take you a Dremel or a very small die grinder, but a Dremel's better, and just kind of run around here where you cut down and make sure there's nothing, because when you grind metal, it gets hot and it creates little flakes and stuff. just make sure that there's no sharp edges on that. Kind of cut it off. Don't hit the journal again, but just kind of take your little Dremel and just kind of round this and make sure there's nothing hanging on the inside, and make sure there's nothing that can break off out here. Take your little belt, and you've clearanced it. That's the simplest way to do it, and you're probably less prone to mess up doing it this way than you are to cut the crankshaft. I mean the cam, and I don't have a cam in here. I got a lot of parts I got to take back to the shop. Most of the time, if we sell out of something, so it's not in stock, it's something I've used on a show here, and I just ain't took it back yet because I still got top plates in here from the show 2 weeks ago. I ain't took them back yet. But anyway, you go to cutting on the cam. If you cut on the lobe, you've got to make sure that lobe is superiorly super smooth when you put it back in there, because if there's a little bump up in it or where some of the metal pushed up, it gets under that lifter. It's going to dig into that lifter, and you're going to somebody just popped a question, but I was trying to read it. It's going to dig into your lifter. It's going to wear your cam out, or it's going to scar your cam, or those little metal shavings could come off, off the cam and fall into the oil and go everywhere. But in my opinion, this is the easiest way to do it and the less likely way to mess up. I have a post on our Facebook page, on the ARC page, of pictures of me actually doing this. It shows me on the die grinder or on the bench grinder grinding this off. Simple, easy, but it's got to be done if you're using anything bigger than a stock cam in the Hemis. I've actually had some CL2s hit. They got a little different duration than the stock, the bone stock cams do. But just certain things like that, this is part of building. That's just all they are to it. And but that's an easy way to clearance it out and not mess up a cam. All right, questions. Won't that throw it out of balance? It's kind of hard to throw a crankshaft that's not balanced to begin with out of balance. These shafts are not balanced. By no means necessary. They are not balanced. These are from China. Yeah, there you go. They're from China. They are still designed to this day to go in a engine that's going to be run on a generator, on a water pump, a pressure washer, or something that turns at 3,600 RPMs all day long. That's where they're balanced at, sort of, at 3,600. This is not going to hurt it any more than it already is. Now, if you want to balance them, that's fine. Balancing crankshafts like that is okay, but the only problem with it is you have to add, so much metal down here, and it makes the crank a little heavier, in my opinion. But those cranks are not balanced to begin with, so that does not hurt it. I mean, you go cutting a lot of it off, possibly, but I've done many that way and run ultralight flywheels on them, and they still run to this day, far as I know. Yeah, they're not balanced anyway. Oh man, I'm getting a lot of messages here. Good Lord. No, late night. All right. Anyway, Hemi head, rocker arms, push rods, crankshaft, and a Bradley Bush T-shirt. That's pretty much it for me. Unless there's anybody else wants to ask any more questions about the Hemi head thing. So I went over the coil bind issue. The cap, yeah, doing the marks, cutting it out with a die grinder. Also, one other thing. See, I knew there was something else. As I said, when you put these rod bearing number for a Hemi crank, that's a 6292. That was quick, wasn't it? And maybe forget what I was saying. Ratio rockers. When you put them on, it's going to add lift to whatever cam you're using. If you're using a stock cam, a 275, whatever, it's going to add. So that's also going to make your piston to valve contact area shorter. With taller cams in these, people's been having a problem. If you put a 308 in it, you cut the head down a little bit, 40 thousandths or so, and put a thin head gasket on it. People's had, contact issues. A lot of people fly cut their piston. What that means is cutting out little areas in the piston in the shape of the valve so that the valve kind of actually goes in the piston. You can do that with, a stock flat top piston a little bit, or, one of the Wiseco pistons that you do not cut down. If you cut the piston down, you can't do that. You don't have enough room. But just be aware of that, along with your coil bind issue with your springs, that you're going to close up your piston to valve contact area also, especially if you put bigger valves in it. Because see, these valves here are 27 millimeter. You go to a 28 or a 30, that's a bigger valve, and it's going to close up the area even more. So with this Hemi thing, you got a lot of areas to look for with the valve train, the coil bind and the piston to valve contact. Just something to keep in mind. Okay, the rod number for Hemi crank is a 6292. The CCs of the stock Hemi head, I've checked a bunch of them, and I get anywhere from 22 to almost 24. So I tell people they're 22 and a half to 23 stock. But everyone I've checked, I ain't found them to be that consistent. But they're around 22, 23 cc's. Any pricing on engines that you need, just call the shop and ask for me, and we'll talk about that then. Yeah, 22 cc's. Will an exhaust valve and intake be legal in AKRA? No, that is not legal. Thanks, Gerald. AKRA, the stock class rules have a maximum seat size and a minimum valve size. So you cannot use an exhaust on the intake side in an AKRA, NKA, Mars or Burris type engine, because like I say, they have, actually here's AKRA head right here. They have, maximum, they got no-go gauges, so, for maximum sizes on the seat, and then they also have a measurement on the valve that the valve head can't be smaller than so-and-so, so they got you there. That was a good catch there, Gerald, thank you. The valves rotate a little bit. I mean, not as much as they do in automotive stuff, but that is one thing that the lash cap helps, is it helps stuff rotate and this, that, and the other. But they do rotate. Yeah, again, any prices on the engine, you need to just call me at the shop, because I don't know what you're wanting, as far as a drag engine, how extreme or mild, but dome Hemi piston with valve relief. Never been a fan of dome pistons in these style engines. My opinion, and this is again my opinion, this ain't written in stone, but this is my opinion and from my data and from what I've worked on through the engines that I've built. You'll get more power, a better power curve with a flat top. I've even had some engines that made more power with a dish piston. They were high compression engines. 14, 15 to 1, which that's high for me. I don't like building really 15, 16 to 1 compression engines, because you wind up breaking these. You weld the block up, that's a different story. But I've never been a big fan of the dome pistons, even in a Hemi head. Depends on how it's shaped. You can get some flow and flame travel, differences with, using a different shaped piston. Shape it different for the way the valves come in, but if you're just going to dome it, just like that, I hadn't been a big fan of that. Now, like I say, shaping them, that's a whole another ball game, but flat top you're going to get better flame travel, in my opinion. Off topic, I noticed a hairline fracture in my Hemi block today on the side cover of dowel pin hole. I just said something about that. Caused by the side cover being over torqued. Has studs installed. Has the cover ever come loose? Because if the cover ever comes loose and moves around, it's going to crack that kind of stuff. If it may not have come all the way off and oil come out, but the bolts could have backed out enough so that the cover moved around a little bit and it could have cracked that. Or you're getting that much flex. I mean, what else is in the engine? I mean, is it stock crank? You know, what rods are in it? What kind of RPMs you turning? Had never seen one crack there from being over torque, but I have from under torque. But like I say, if you're using the stock gaskets on it, when these things go through heat cycles, the gaskets compress. I had a discussion with someone today that bought an engine from us and built this stuff, and he bought one of our BP kits, put the engine together, and the first night on the track, the side cover come off on it. And he called me, was a little upset about it. I understand. But, you know, we talked about it before. When he bought the engine, we went over some stuff, and I told him, I said, you put this thing together, check your in play. I got a video on that. You know, I got a video for this, video for that. But get your in play set, torque your side cover to 200 inch-pounds, finish assembling your engine head, and before you crank it up, recheck your torque on your side cover bolts, 200 inch-pounds. Sometimes they'll move, sometimes they won't, because that gasket collapses. It compresses down. Then when it goes through a heat cycle, it compresses even more. If you got the bolts torqued to 200 inch-pounds, and the purpose of torquing a bolt is when it gets tight, it actually stretches the bolt. I mean, we're talking minute stretching here, tenths of a thousandth. But it stretches the bolt, and that bolt becomes a spring, and it pulls back against itself. And that's how it stays tight. And you got it torqued down, you got the proper stretch in it, everything stays tight. When that gasket collapses, the spring gives way, and the bolt is not pulling against itself anymore and can back out. That's why it's important after a heat cycle to let the engine cool completely overnight and retorque your side cover. Sometimes, most of the time what I do is I torque them all on 200 inch-pounds, go through a heat cycle. I may check them on the dyno. I got a little small wrench. I may check them on the dyno just to make sure, but I let it cool overnight, and then when I come back, I go to 205 inch-pounds, and retorque them then. Usually we don't have a problem with it, depending on how modified the engine is. But that's one of the reasons why side covers come off, is because you torqued it properly, but when that gasket gets hot and it collapses, it loosens the bolts, and they come off. No, that was a off topic also, but I just kind of like to... No, we don't sell a stronger retainer for the stock ones. All we got is, you know, the stock Hemi rocker, retainers. I thought I had one up here. Guess not. Anyway, they're basically the same as the clone or the Honda ones. You know, what you got's what you got. Here it is, right here. Yeah, they're basically, you know, clone exhaust retainers. But they are what they are. That's all we can get. They might be some out there, but we hadn't found none yet. Any advantages to de-stroking a 208? The only advantage to de-stroking the 212, which when you put a clone crankshaft in a 212 Predator, it de-strokes it around 40 thousandths. The only real advantage to that is if you have clone parts laying around, like you got a clone connecting rod, you got a clone billet flywheel. All that stuff works on it. That's the only real advantage to it. You know, 40 thousandths, as far as de-stroking, I don't think it's going to hurt it no more than adding 40 thousandths to it is going to really help it. You're going to see, you know, a dyno will see it. I don't think you'll see it on the racetrack. Yeah, I have tested that on an engine. Taking a crankshaft, you know, getting everything timed, having a rod clearance set. Started out with a Predator crankshaft, done my dyno tuning, took the side cover off, popped the flywheel off. You got to change the rod, so I just moved the piston all the way down. And you can, if you're really careful and take your time, you can change the rod without taking the piston out. Move it all the way down, ease it out, put the new rod in it for the clone, put the clone crankshaft in it. And my dyno, you know, only saw a few tenths. I mean, it wasn't even a half a horsepower from going from the, you know, the 2.165 stroke Predator crankshaft down to the 2.125 stroke, or I think it was a 128 stroke clone crank. I did see a little bit of acceleration difference, but as far as overall power, it was less than a half a horsepower. But the real advantage is if you've got clone parts there, you don't want to buy, you got a clone crankshaft laying over here, and you got a Predator engine, but you got a clone rod. You don't want to buy a rod, don't want to buy a flywheel. Put it in there. You're not going to see the difference on the track, I don't think. The dyno will see it, but the track won't. The 4200, the mongrel clutch. I actually got one here somewhere, I think. Hold on just a second. No, I guess I took it back out of the shop. Anyway, the mongrel clutch, is based off the max torque design. We've changed a few things, or excuse me, they built and changed a few things for us. We didn't do it; they done it for us. It takes the Tomar and Bully drivers. All of them's got ball bearings on it, or needle bearings. Makes it a much smoother, cooler running, easier to maintain clutch. They're a tough little clutch, but they are basically made and focused around the actual box stock class. They engage around 3200. They're non-adjustable, but for the box stock, small pipe classes, weenie pipe, red, green, maybe even purple plate engines, they work really well on those. Good, strong clutch. They're dependable. We sold a lot of them, and I still run one from time to time. But they are more suited for like the box stock applications. You get up to like the unrestricted pro stocks and all, you need a little more clutch engagement than what the mongrel can offer. But other than that, they're a good clutch. They're a great mini bike clutch. A lot of mini bike guys use them. What is the point of a billet side cover? And wheel crankcase and block pressure relief. I got on the topic of this today with somebody about crank pressure. The billet side cover, I know I got one of them here somewhere. Hold on just a second. Actually, no, I don't. Hey, look, I'm actually wearing pants tonight, y'all. Most nights I don't even have on pants. That's why I don't stand up. Anyway, the billet side cover, what it does, of course, it's a much denser, thicker material than this casted, aluminum stuff here. But its biggest asset is it uses all four of the dowel pin holes. You got, the stock cover uses these two right here. That's where the little dowels go in. But the billet side cover uses the top one and the bottom one, which helps lock the block together from flexing and fatiguing. Another big asset to it is it runs dual bearings on the crankshaft, which gives you 4 points of contact on the crank to help control crankshaft flex. With it being a big, thick cover, with all four dowel pins and the strong bolts that we use, it really holds the block together from flexing a whole lot in modified applications, and just holds everything together a lot better. Now, block pressure, me and this guy was talking about crank pressure today, and he was having problems with his side cover staying on, and come to find out it was the torquing problem. It was a guy with a BP, and these people were telling him that his side cover is coming off because he's got too much crank pressure in it, and it's blowing the side cover off. I will look at this camera and go BS on that. If you had that kind of pressure in the blocks, the seals would be the first thing to go. The crank seals that go around, it's a little, most of them are black and some of them's red, but the seals, you'll see them in here. They're a little rubber seal that go around the crankshaft that keep the oil in the engine. Those are designed to blow out if there's any excess pressure. That's usually the first thing that goes. So excess crank pressure does not cause your side cover to come off. The seals would go before those bolts did. I mean, you're talking, 1/4-inch bolts that are holding a side cover on versus a little rubber seal that's pushed in the engine with your thumbs. It's off of rubber friction that holds it in there. It'll come right out. But the billet side cover has extra, vent holes in it. And relieving crank pressure is important for horsepower, because when this crankshaft is spinning around inside this engine with a rod connected to it, it's nothing but a big old fan, and it's creating a lot of wind, and that wind's got to go somewhere. So most of it, most of the time we vent off the valve cover. Most all valve covers have, vents that let air out. But in a lot of applications where you're turning above 7,000, that's not enough. So you can either drill into the stock side cover or use one of our billet side covers that have, the screw-in hose barbs. And what that does, that relieves that pressure, because that pressure stays in the block. It ain't gonna blow your side cover off, but it keeps a lot of wind in there, and it actually creates drag inside the engine. That air needs to get out, and the air moving around, going from top to bottom, this, that, and the other, actually helps carry oil, which helps lubricate the engine. That air builds up down there, and it will create a little bit of drag on. I mean, not a lot. I mean, you're not looking at no half a horsepower gain by putting vent tubes on your engine. But it does help the seals last longer. I see people at the racetrack all the time. They run these modified engines, turn them 8,000 or more RPMs, and all they're using is, the valve cover vent tube. And there's oil all down the side of their engines, all on the flywheel side, dripping off the bottom of the engine, and they're blaming the valve covers. When most of the time, this oil being pushed past the seals, the seals are still holding on, but it's pushing oil, out through the crankshaft down here out, and because they got too much pressure down there. And I tell them, you ain't got to buy a billet side cover if you don't want to run one. That's your decision. But put another vent, in the side cover or something, just to help some of that air get out. But 8,000 RPMs and that crankshaft, that's a lot of wind down there. But that's, in a nutshell, what makes the billet side covers better. It's durable. It's a really thick piece, and it locks the block together with those 4 dowel pins and those bigger bolts, and it just helps control crankshaft flex and block fatigue. Helps things last longer. Wayne, why are you gonna throw me under the bus like that, man? I was there rooting for y'all. I went live for y'all and was rooting just as hard as Mama and Grandmama was down there. I was just as, well, I wasn't as sick as Cody. Friend of ours led 19 3/4 laps this weekend at a little track. I went live on my personal page with it. Cody Stevens. Little kid's good. I mean, the boy's smooth as glass and is really good on these karts, and I enjoy watching him race. Led the whole race, start to finish, half a track ahead, going in turn 3 to take the checker flag to win $1,000, and this engine blows up. And Wayne, I don't know, man. You need to talk to Duke on that, because he builds your engines. I just go there for moral support. But not only did Cody lose $1,000 when that happened, but Cody promised me if he wins that money, he's going to take me to the Waffle House after the race. So I lost out on a patty melt also, which I'm just as upset over that as Cody is about losing that $1,000. So I feel your pain. Highest horsepower a Hemi has done on my dyno. I think I've made a little over 30 with one. Or was that a... Yeah, that was a Hemi Head engine. Had a Hemi Head, had a 28 mil valve in it, a lot of head work. Pretty good sized Tilliston on it. Stroked. I want to say it was 2815 on the bore. I want to say it made 30 to 30 and a half. The strongest one I've ever had on there has been 32. But that wasn't a Hemi. That's, pretty good. I'm not going to say I got a conservative dyno, because my numbers on my stalkers are a little higher than other people's, and we've swapped engines, and he's tested mine, I've tested his, and we get the same numbers with their engines we get with ours as he does on his dyno, but, it's not as tuned, or it's not, my dyno's not as turned up as some others are. That engine would probably make 35 or more on somebody else's, or might not make but 27 on this guy's over here, but on mine it made, you know, like I think it was 30, right at 30 and a half, but that's the most it's been on mine, on a Hemi. Cody Stevens himself is in the house. Send me a shirt, Cody. If you got any shirts made, I'll wear your shirt on a show one night. Looking for a good head gasket. I use the stock metal head gaskets on them. That's why two reasons why I don't get into this high compression stuff. Number one is I want engines to last. You know, if you're not welding up engines, not welding support on them, to me, I think 12 to 1 is about as high as you need to go to make these things last. I can go to 14 to 1 and I might get 8 races out of it. I might get 8 laps out of it, you know, without welding the block. It blows a jug off of them sometimes. And I even put, you know, bolt-on bracing support on them and stuff, and they still break sometimes. You weld them, you can, you know, go up to 14 to 1 and, you know, make a little more power. But unwelded, even with billet side covers, about 12 to 1 is about as high as I like to go. And but I use the stock, the OEM metal gaskets. Typically, I try to set my piston, if I can, between 10 and 20 in the hole. That way I can run 1 to 2 of the metal head gaskets and get my 30 thousandths piston head clearance, because that's how you figure piston head clearance is piston in the hole at top dead center plus the thickness of your gasket. If you're 10 in the hole, you got 2 10 thousandths gaskets, that's 30 thousandths. You got your piston head clearance. But yeah, either that or the fire ring gaskets. Get the all rubber fire ring gaskets. Don't get the ones that's got the gray composite stuff, because they compress too much on the sides and it can warp the head. But the fire ring ones, you know, you're going to have a lot of compression or a lot of heat to burn through those. Those are pretty good. On the side cover, you can usually vent somewhere. All right, here we go. Just the front of the engine, somewhere in this area right here. I don't have a stock side cover in here, but somewhere in this area right here, you can put a little 90 degree or, you know, one straight up right here. And just anywhere in this area here, you know, on the side cover, or excuse me, right here. Anywhere in this area right here is a good area to put it. You don't want to get it, you know, too close to the back or around the cam, because oil slings in funky places out through there. You don't want to sling no oil out. But typically, you know, mildly built modifieds, you know, mild outlaws, only 1 extra vent's really all you need. You know, but 2 ain't gonna hurt nothing. Does a pulse fitting diaphragm fuel pump relieve crankcase pressure? No. The fuel pump is working off of the pulse of the engine. You know, if you do it off the crankcase like some people do, as the crankshaft turns around, as it, you know, the journal goes down, pulling the rod down, it creates a slight vacuum inside the engine. And, you know, like I told you, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, the valve cover has a baffle in it, and that's why you put the pulse fitting, you know, so you over the baffle, so that when the engine fills up with pressure, that baffle opens, relieves the pressure, and then closes. Opens and closes, opens, and that creates a pulse. But the fuel pump itself doesn't relieve pressure, but you can use it. I see what you're saying now. You can use it to suck the vacuum out, kind of like a vacuum system on a car. I've done that in the past, using those dual type pumps with really big lines on it, and didn't really see anything on the dyno with it. I tried it in flatheads and I tried it in animals several years ago with the flatheads, like back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I tried that with a double pump, trying to create a vacuum system in there, and I didn't see anything on the dyno. They got stuff out now that's belt driven or battery operated that creates a lot more vacuum, and it's got a check valve in it that keeps oil in it. that would probably work real good. I've never really tried one, though. Shannon Portwood is in the house. Bradley wants his hat back, or whatever you call that thing on your head. Well, Shannon, number one, you should know this is not Bradley Bush's hat because the bill is bent. Okay, I don't go around looking like a geriatric ice cube. I actually wear my hat like you're supposed to. Geriatric ice cube. I'm making up new words all over the place, ain't I? Alright, best place to get a pulse for the fuel pump on a Hemi. Same place, valve cover. This was over in my last show. Like I say, stuff's still here. You'll want it, you know, the plug wire will be somewhere in this area right here. You'll want it, you know, if you're looking at the valve cover, you'll want it just to the left of the plug, kind of in between the O and the H. But you'll want to go to the left because of this bracing right here on. You want to get just past it. But that's where I put them, right there on the Hemis. Works great. Alrighty then. Well, look at here. David Simpson finally joined. Boy sits at a desk all day under a fan at ARC and has finally joined in my show an hour and 15 minutes after I start. Good job, Dave. Good job. I'm proud of you. Alright, that's pretty much all I got. Unless I got some more questions. Pulsing off the block. Like I said, I went over at my last show. If you go over, you know, the top plate show, the last time I went over a whole bunch of stuff like that. But not a fan of pulsing off the block because, you know, you're going to need to do it, you know, here in the top of the block on the side cover. There's oil. There's 14 to 16 ounces of oil being slung around in there. And, you know, it's trying to get out, you know, trying to relieve pressure, and it'll use that pulse line. And sometimes, if you don't plumb it right, you can get oil in there, which the oil gets up to your pump stops, your fuel stops, your engine stops. That's why I've always liked on stock engines, mild modifieds, maybe in the outlaw area, pulsing off the valve cover. You get a lot less problems. Now, if you go into a Tilliston, you know, big 390, McCoonies, stuff like that, pulsing off the intake is better because most adapters that go on there already have a pulse in there for you. All you got to do is bolt it up and it pulses off the intake. That's the best pulse you're going to get is off the intake, but you can't do it on stockers. And you have to have, you know, billet adapters going there with the pulse fitting in it. But that's the best, you know, for, you know, big carburetors, Tilliston, the big methanol carburetors, McCoonies, stuff like that. All right. Now, once again, I'm going to say we are done. Uh-oh, somebody wants a popsicle in there and they're crying because they can't get a popsicle at 9:15 at night before they got to go to bed. All right, Hemi rocker arms. I'll post this up when I get done, and anything people missed, they can go back over, or just give me a call tomorrow at the shop, 800-521-3560. ARCracing.com is our website. You can reach me directly at Jody at ARCracing.com. That's JODY at ARCracing.com. Or or you call me directly at the shop. An hour deep and still going. You know, I've tried at least 3 times to get off here and questions keep popping up. And me being who I am, when I see a question, I'm going to answer it. Usually what I do is I say all my goodbyes and just get off before any more questions come up. But yeah, I'm an hour deep and still going. And but send me a shirt, one of your racing shirts, and I'll wear it during the show. I wear a medium. And appreciate everybody coming on. May not do another show in 2 weeks. I'm not sure. I'll be on the road a lot the next couple 3 weeks, going to places here and there, going to tracks, going to races, and I'll list usually places I'm going. This that. Now I probably won't be racing. That I'm probably just be going to go do the P&R type thing, you know. But I may try to do one in 2 weeks. I may not. But anyway, I'll let y'all know when I do one and what the topic's going to be. Appreciate everybody coming by and spending a little time with us tonight. And Bradley Bush, I said I'd make you famous. So the Macho Man, Bradley Bush, free t-shirt. Send it to me. I'll wear it. Make you famous. Y'all have a good night. And see y'all next time.